Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, Nigeria has an incredibly vibrant book publishing industry, with perhaps the largest number of publishing houses in any African country. At one stage, prospects for the book industry in Nigeria appeared rosy. The federal government established paper and pulp making industries, and an elaborate plan was drawn up for the achieving self-sufficiency in the production of books. But unfortunately, all that collapsed following the nation's economic downturn in the 1980s, and a book famine descended on Nigeria. One indication of the unhealthy state of the book sector in Nigeria since 1981 has been the number of task forces, study groups, conferences, and committees set to make recommendations on various facets of book production and distribution. In the studio with us is a publishing expert, Dr. Ajiboye, and he'll be speaking to us on the prospects and challenges of the book publishing industry in Nigeria. Good to have you with us, Dr. Ajiboye.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so now take us through the trade of book publishing in Nigeria. I mean, where is it? And, tell us about that.
Thank you. When you talk about the publishing industry in Nigeria, I would say that it's one of the, or it used to be, one of the industries that contribute greatly to our GDP. But as a result of economic challenges, piracy, and what have you, we discovered that things started going downwards. And now, as I speak with you, if care is not taken, the publishing industry in Nigeria will go into extinction. Coupled with the fact that you have to also import cheaper books into the country as against using the local companies to print your books. And that tells you that it's a matter of time because we don't have the muscle to compete with the foreign publishing outfits.
When exactly did things start going down for the publishing industry?
Well, I can say that it's over 10 years now.
Well, it looks like it's further than 10 years because we were talking about the publishing industry in 1981.
Yeah, it started then, but when you say it peaked around about 10 years ago.
So how would you compare the book publishing industry in this climate to other parts of the world? Because I know you talk about the fact that we have to import books and it puts us at a disadvantage. But in comparison, where are we globally?
Maybe I should say we take one step forward and 10 backwards. Now, let's look at raw materials. When you go to other publishing outfits outside Nigeria, you discover that it is a progressive, or I say a developmental process for their publishing industry, whereby they have raw material in terms of planting trees that they will use to produce papers. In Nigeria today, maybe what you can produce, maybe, I'm not even too sure about that, is papers you can use for newsprint. But when you talk of real paper to produce quality books, we don't have such raw materials in Nigeria. The trees we have in Nigeria that are grown here are not too good to produce high quality papers. But go to Finland, go to India, go to China, they have such good trees that can be used to produce high-quality papers as good as 24 GSM.
So based on that, we're already disadvantaged when it comes
to
the raw material.
Yes, not to talk of the machines. You have to rely on the developed world to bring in machines to Nigeria. And when you bring in the machines, again, you have to rely on the experts from those countries to help you to even run the machine for some time before you can now hand over to people from Nigeria. Again, to maintain those machines, another challenge, because you still have to import the parts and rely on all this. Then, foreign exchange. How do you get the foreign exchange to bring in those machines at high cost? You import papers at high cost. You import expatriate at high cost. So virtually everything is expensive. Now, when you bring them here, to now have competitive advantage over those people in developed worlds becomes very difficult. And again, they are very wise. They move
When you say they're very wise, who
They are
now?
very wise in
You're
this.
talking about
Those people
the
in
Western,
the developed world.
Yeah, the developed world. Okay.
They are very, very wise in the sense that they have the machine and they move these machines from where they think things are expensive to countries where the labor cost is cheap. And that's why you find out a company in America claims to be a publishing outfit, but the company where they are producing is in China.
And then thrown in the mix is the issue of government policy, which we hear is not encouraging of publishing at all. And then piracy. Speak to the issue of piracy that, makes most publishers in this part of the world, prefer to publish their works abroad.
Yes. When you talk about piracy, I would say it's an intellectual theft. When you pirate anything, it's stealing. But unfortunately, the mentality of people here is, well, it's cheap. Then I can go for it. Well, when you go for pirated products, you are not helping the economy of the country in the sense that the actual owner of the intellectual property is being robbed. The person who is robbing is not producing full scale, but is affecting the person who owns the right. Now, intellectual property law in Nigeria is not also helping matters. Let's look at the Copyright Act of 1999. If you look at number 42, it's talking about, look at the fines there if you are convicted. Mm-hmm. It ranges between 50,000 naira and maximum 500,000 naira. Or you are imprisoned for 12 months, a maximum of 10 years. So
are we stating that this is something that perchance our government is not taking seriously enough?
The government is not, the executive arm is not taking it serious in the sense that they are the one who have the law enforcement agents, but they are not empowered. Go to the Copyright Commission. They find it difficult to even have enough vehicles to move around, to patrol, to arrest those who are pirating. Again, the legislative arm, the laws are archaic. Ooh. How can you be talking of penalizing somebody with 50,000, somebody who has pirated a product of millions worth of naira? Mm. Now you are saying 50,000
That's
naira.
like a pat on the back.
I mean, you will do it again.
Slap on the wrist.
So he will
Go
do
and
it
enjoy
now
your loot.
And then keep doing it. Imprison him, he comes out after 12 months, and he will go back into the business.
Do you think
larger scale?
Do you think failure of the right government policy is as a result of a lack of understanding of the link between the publishing industry and development, whether it's economic development or social development that you're talking about? Do people in government actually realize that there is a link? I mean, if you have a population that publishes and that reads, and like they say, readers are leaders. Which means you are what you're coming up with is an enlightened populace, an enlightened citizenry, and that will rub off on society at the end of the day, and even our political space. Is that the missing link?
I don't really think that's the challenge.
What is that?
We cannot say that the government do not understand what is needed to be done. They understand, but they are not interested. Let's look at it. Nigeria is a mono economy. Mm-hmm. We rely so much on crude oil, and that has been our challenge for years. Even the last recession we went through, that was the biggest challenge. Just because the oil price crashed at the world market, then Nigeria was having challenges. So when you look at the issue of the link, it's not about they don't understand. It's about they are not willing. The willpower is not there. Go and check the budget, like I said, of the copyright. It's not as if they don't know that they need to check all these things. They are aware. But how much are they making? So it does not make any sense to them. They prefer to make money from oil, and then they are disconnected from other sectors. Look at agriculture and every other thing. It's now that we are trying to come back to all those things. So it's just that they are not interested because what is coming in is so mega that they don't care.
Well, Dr. Ajiboye, that leads me on to my next question, because just how viable is the sector? How viable was the industry, and how viable is it now? Is it something that our government should focus on because it actually adds something to our gross domestic product? Or is this just something that we've simply lost the art of? We were so well known for our oral storytelling back in the day. History decrees that. So where did we go wrong? How viable has this industry remained?
The industry, like we said before it crashed, was viable in the sense that, well, then oil was not yet discovered. Agriculture was the mainstay. So as a result, every other small contributions were valued. But at a point when people started thinking that, well, what is coming in from this industry is not as much as the oil boom, then the whole thing started crashing. So now we missed it because of the fact that Nigeria rely so much on only one source of income. And that's where we missed it. Every little bit of contribution from every industry in Nigeria is very critical. Even when you go to the, what do you call it? The film industry and what have you.
Yes.
Just go outside Africa and see how people watch Africa Magic and every
Very true. Nollywood is well loved.
Yeah.
Music industry, and we've taken over Africa.
So you're saying that the publishing industry can actually achieve, such feats? I mean, this is a country that's produced the Chinua Achebes of this world, the Wole Soyinkas, the Ben Okris, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, so many. I mean, there's a long list of names, and they're even winning the most prestigious prizes abroad. I mean, to show you that, look, this is actually
something well revered.
Yeah, and we're still not taking the publishing, seriously. What impact is this even having in the education sector? Because you'd hear university students, for example, say, oh, we get, it's handouts from lecturers. There are no books.
Of course. When it will be pirated, I'll be discouraged from writing, except if the reason you are writing is not for economic reasons. If it's for economic reasons, then why do you have to write a book that you know that the following day it will be brought into the country at a cheaper price, and then you lose out? So I think the challenge of what we are facing today is that people are not willing to write as such again because they know there is no money in it. Of course, let's be realistic. Economic interest is virtually the first interest. And as a result, when you know you are not going to make your money, then you don't want to go into, and on the long run, we are going to suffer for it. And
so
that's why
in the same vein, we're talking about education now.
Yes.
Because there's a challenge facing the education sector whereby back in the day, you used to be able to go and collect or purchase textbooks from the bookstore for primary school education.
In fact,
or for secondary school
there were
education.
popular bookshops
Indeed.
all around.
So now we're finding that a lot of schools are creating customized textbooks so that you can purchase them directly from the school in order to take out the middleman. Why are we facing such challenges?
Well, may I say that also some people in the educational sector, people writing those books, if they're outside the university setting, secondary school setting, they're likely not to be in touch with what is happening in those environments. So as a result, the lecturers are producing books that they think are very good, but I'm sorry to say I'm not condemning them. Are those books really relevant to helping our economy?
Is it in terms of content?
In terms of
the quality of the book?
I would say in terms of content and in terms of quality. Now, content in the sense that the books we produce, compare them with the books that are produced for Harvard University and all those universities that are making waves. When you look at those books, they are not books defining what is. They are books telling you how you apply knowledge.
And they promote analytical thinking as opposed to simply just telling you what to think.
Today, the books we have that you claim to be producing in our university settings, most of them are what is economics, what is HR. That's what you get.
I wonder what's
But aligning HR, aligning economics to reality of our situations, they are not there.
But can you really blame that on the publishing itself, or the fact that the education policy has not reflected the changing times and the forward movement?
I think that's a question that we'll let you ponder.
We'll let you answer that
while we go on a short break. We'll be right back on the morning show.
Stay with us. Right, you're welcome back. You're watching the morning show on Arise News. We have Dr. Dari Ajiboye. We've been talking about the prospects and challenges of the book publishing industry in Nigeria. And from all that's been said so far, it doesn't look too good. And the question, of course, before we end our discussion this morning would be, what would be the way forward then? How can we bring, a thriving publishing industry back? But let's talk about what we were talking about when we went on break behind the camera, Keturah.
Yes, indeed. So, my question is about the foremost book in the world, the most widely read, most highly documented printed version of it, which is the Bible. Now, we are, of course, an incredibly religious society, particularly down in the Southwest. There are a lot of Christians. So I want to talk about how Bible publishing is different from other types of publishing in Nigeria.
Well, I want to say that in terms of the process of publishing itself or printing itself, there is virtually not much of any difference. Okay. But when you talk about what goes behind the scene, of course, a lot of differences. Let's look at the Bible. I'm not talking about English Bible now. When you talk about the Bible, it starts in Nigeria, for example, with translation of the Bible. The first Bible to be published in Nigeria was actually the Efik Bible.
Was it the Efik Bible?
It was the Efik Bible.
I thought it was the one done by Bishop Ajayi Crowder.
No.
Okay.
The first Bible to be published was the Efik Bible, and it was published in 1868. And followed by Yoruba Bible that was published in 1884.
Okay.
And then the Igbo Bible, 1906. Now, when you look at the translation process, which is like raw material feeding the publishing industry in the Bible business. When I mean business now, not about money. It starts and it takes a long process. In Nigeria, it takes minimum of 38 years to translate a Bible.
Is that a normal statistic?
That's a lifetime.
Would that be 38 years in another country to translate a piece of text?
In Nigeria, that was the fastest.
Wow.
Wow.
I want to say that we had Bibles that took us 58 years to translate. But outside Nigeria, yes, you are right, because of technology and what have you, they have faster. But the benchmark we set for ourselves, even globally in the United Bible Society, is 12 years.
Okay.
Which we have not even achieved.
Where are we now?
Now, we talk about maybe 14 years. But Nigeria, where Bible Society of Nigeria is trying to make a giant stride. In 2016, we started translating the Bible into a PA and Ogbuea. And I can assure you, by God's grace, by June, July this year, the New Testament will be published.
That's wonderful.
And that will be about 5 years. Okun language Bible is being translated. We started 2016, January. As I speak with you, this year again, we are publishing it. And that tells you that the speed is changing.
We're moving fast.
Now, what am I talking about? The process of even translating takes a very long time before you go into the actual publishing. So it takes a long time. But when you talk about printing itself,
yes,
there's no difference between public printing the Bible except the types of paper that we
quality
use.
of production.
Because the quality of production that is required, because the Bible is voluminous, and then the paper you need to print quality Bible is minimum of 28 GSM, and very thin Bible, but highly quality.
And
so
those are not found in this climes.
Let's talk about. Before we move on, I want to quickly follow up with that question.
Yes.
Because we have over 520 ethnic tribes in Nigeria, and over 250 languages spoken.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned the Okun language, the Efik language, the Yoruba language, the Igbo language. Yeah. How many languages out of those over 250 have we successfully managed to translate the Bible into?
26.
Only
26
published, but we are working on 9 again as I speak now. But we have a plan which we call Vision 2027. Our plan is that by 2027 we want to complete additional 20 local language Bibles to make it 46. Okay. And we are working hard on that.
Wonderful.
Okay, very briefly before we go on, what exactly are the challenges that you are encountering in being able to translate the Bible to this other, I mean, so many, 500 and something Nigerian languages?
Well, I would say it stems from human challenge, let me say human capital challenge, because you need quality people to translate the Bible, graduates, but the graduates want to work in oil companies and what have you. So we find it difficult to get quality people to translate. 2, translation consultants. As I speak with you, we don't have a single translation consultant in Nigeria helping us. The 2 we have, one is from Togo, the second one is from Zambia. So they have to come here at intervals to help us check those Bibles we have translated, even though they are not Nigerians. Apart from that, again, I would say spiritual challenge. The devil will not also fold his hands and watch us translate the Bible that will take people away from his kingdom. So as a result, he will try to also fire his bullets to make sure that we are not able to move at the speed we want to move. The funding challenge. When we talk about
that must be the major challenge for you.
Yeah, to translate the Bible into a language costs a minimum of 40 million naira.
Did you say 40?
40 million naira.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, is that where electronic e-book or e-reading, comes in? Will it solve that particular problem of printing? But let's even talk about how has the electronic media affected the publishing industry generally?
Well, I would say that both more positively it has affected. In the sense that when you talk about the electronic media, but don't forget we are talking about translation to start with. Before you can put it on electronic media, it must be first and foremost translated. So it has not changed anything. But when you talk about the contemporary world, yes, having the computer, having everything is making it faster for us to achieve everything we are achieving. 2, it is making it cheaper on the long run, not on the short run. On the short run, the cost of translating and doing everything or acquiring those electronic machines you need is expensive. But after you have acquired them, it becomes cheaper because you don't need warehousing costs. You don't need too many people to help you to distribute. You just download and all that. So it's enhancing our work.
So this sector, this industry is a very, very important industry that people are not even looking at all, and a very viable one, at that. Yeah, I mean, 40 million naira to translate.
40 million for costs, not profits.
Not profits.
No,
costs. The costs.
It's not viable, is what he's stating.
Yeah.
In terms of the cost to the publisher.
Yes.
But imagine people stepping in as translators and all of that, where you have a dearth in Nigeria.
Sure.
That could be, an industry that one could exploit.
I must tell you that I've been encouraging people to go and study translation. Why? If you study translation, you have advantage of getting jobs. Not only in Nigeria. Go to University of Ibadan. You discover that Americans are there.
Yes.
Studying
Yoruba. Yes.
Yes.
In fact, there's actually a course, a degree at La Sorbonne University in Paris, one of the foremost universities in the world, about African history, culture, and language. And it teaches you everything in Yoruba.
That's it.
Indeed.
So now, but unfortunately, people look at it from the immediate gratification, and that's the challenge. But if you go into translation, there are organizations all over the world wanting to translate one book or one piece or another into Nigerian languages, and they are ready to fund those things. But you hardly find people to do it.
And then there is a problem that, Nigerian languages, many are actually becoming extinct.
And that's where Bible Society of Nigeria comes in.
Tell us about that.
Now, when you talk about us translating the Bible, it goes beyond the spiritual angle we are looking at it from. The Bible for people to read. We're actually preserving culture.
Yes.
The death of a language is the death of a culture. Now, when you translate the Bible into a language, it helps preserving the language. So any language that has died, check it out. Sometimes it's because they are not documented. They are spoken, but they are not written. So as a result of that, oncoming generation has nothing to refer to. in terms of learning those languages. So for us, we are both doing spiritual work and at the same time also helping the government and the culture of our country, Nigeria. But people don't even realize that. Go and check literacy, how they all started in Nigeria. Most of those literacy materials that were used to learn Nigerian languages were actually from the Bible. Because there were no other written materials in those languages. I've talked about Epie, Ogbia, and Okun. The bulk of what you have as written materials today are the Bibles we have translated.
So you could say, whether globally or even locally, that the Bible is the foundation of publishing.
Of course.
So I want to quickly talk about the actual focus of reading in Nigeria.
Okay.
Now, how vast is it? How much do Nigerians actually read? Because we've talked about, physical books, we've talked about e-readers, we've talked about tomes, theological tomes, but how much reading do we actually do as a populace? Are these statistics that you have?
I don't have the statistics, but I want to debunk the fact that Nigerians don't read. It's not true. Maybe it depends on what they are reading.
Aha.
That's what we should be talking about.
Are you able to tell us what they are reading?
But to say that Nigerians are not reading, it's not true. How many graduates are we churning out of the universities every year? Are you saying those people are not reading before they pass their exams?
Well, that's a matter for another day.
Well, the question was not the statement was not that Nigerians do not read. The question was how well read are we? How much reading do we actually do on a day-to-day basis? Okay. So once you leave the educational sector, once you leave tertiary institutions, how much reading do you then go on to do during your day-to-day activities? That's the question.
Yeah, the percentage of people reading outside reading for exams, of course, I agree with you, is lower than what it should be. But, well, I don't know. For me, I read.
Yeah, but
and I know that most people also are still reading.
Is it not reflected in the literacy
we are unfortunately running out of time. We could talk to you forever, Dr. Ajiboye. This is incredibly interesting.
Thank you
very much. We'll end on the fact that Nigerians are incredibly well read, and we will continue to print, continue to publish, and continue to read.